Hi you all.
Shalom.
Welcome to Shebrew, as we study the Torah portion through the lens of relationships. Hope you guys are ready, and let's go.
The portion that we're looking at this week is called Terumah, and that basically means contribution or offering. It's in Shemot or Exodus chapter 25 through 27:19. It ends right at the end of 27, so it's another one that splits in the middle of the chapters. But we're going to go right ahead into 25 and read verse 1 through 8. And it says, "And the Lord spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel that they take up a contribution for me. From everyone whose heart moves him, you shall take up my contribution. And this is the contribution which you take up from them: gold and silver and bronze and blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen and goat's hair and ram's skins dyed red and fine leather and acacia wood, oil for the light, for the spices for the anointing oil and for the sweet incense, shoham stones and stones to be set in the shoulder garment and in the breastplate. And they shall make me a set apart place, and I shall dwell in their midst."
Sounds amazing.
So one of the things that we're kind of seeing here is that this contribution was supposed to come from everyone whose heart moves him. In other words, this was supposed to be a voluntary offering. This isn't like the offerings that we discussed in the last parsha, the offerings of the first fruits, or the offerings of the Shalosh Regalim, which is unleavened bread, and Shavuot and Sukkot, where all the males are supposed to appear before Elohim and they're not to come empty-handed. Those were involuntary offerings. You may agree with Elohim that they were good to do, but whether you agree with it or not, you had to do them. It was not voluntary. But this offering to construct a portable temple or portable house for Elohim was voluntary. So we're going to go and look at another verse that Rav Shaul, that Paul was probably drawing from here in 2 Corinthians chapter 9. And of course, if you want to get the fuller context, it'd probably be better to just read that whole chapter. But we're going to read the one that's really dealing with this, and that's 2 Corinthians 9:7. It says, "Let each one give as he purposes in his heart, not of grief or of necessity, for Elohim loves a joyous giver."
Yeah.
So, verse 7, it tells us we give from our heart because Elohim loves a joyous giver. So how can we apply this to our relationships? What can we voluntarily give in order to build a space like they were building a tabernacle, a space for Elohim? What can we voluntarily give to build a space for relationships to grow? Your relationship with Elohim, yes. What about with your family or with your friends or with a potential spouse? What are some things that we could voluntarily give to make this a good space to build a relationship? We could give of our time, we could give of our heart, we could give forgiveness, or we could repent or change our minds about something. We could give compassion and prayers. We could give our emotions, we can give our love, our mind. The list goes on and on of things that we can voluntarily give in order to build a relationship. So kind of the idea is, what are you going to give of your resources, whatever those are, to provide that space for your relationships to grow and to flourish?
Yeah, it's a matter of, using your time wisely in a way. In the beginning of a relationship, you're all excited and wanting to talk to them or text them, do video chats all the time, every single day, every waking moment you possibly can. Well, is that real life? Is that reality? Probably not so much. So it's a matter of figuring out, okay, what is that value? What is that time? Do you really have time right now in your life, in your schoolwork, and what you have going on in your job or your career or kids raising? All sorts of things. What kind of time and value do you have right now to be able to give to that relationship? Either that potential relationship or the relationship that you're in right now. If you are in a relationship, if you are married, are you taking on too much? Are you allowing the kids to come before your spouse? Are you allowing your career to come before your spouse or before your kids? or your ministry that you're doing. And then you're slacking on time spent with your kids or with your spouse. So you have to have that value and figure out that space and that time to be able to spend with somebody.
Yeah. What are the things that I have to give to those other things, to that job, to that ministry, things of that nature? But what are the other resources that I can give voluntarily to the relationships that matter the most?
Yeah.
Now, if you're unwilling to give of your resources to foster growth and development of your relationships, then those relationships are going to suffer. Mm-hmm. They're going to wither, stagnate, eventually die if you don't voluntarily give, because just maintaining the status quo may not be enough.
Yeah.
You need to do the voluntarily giving of yourself to foster that growth and development. Your relationships grow by giving of yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
So the next thing that we're going to look at, we're going to read verse 9. We also get this same idea in verse 40 of 25, and then in 26:30, and also in 27:8. We may read those because it's just 4 verses. So 25:9 says, "According to all that I show you, the pattern of the dwelling place, and the pattern of all its furnishings, make it exactly so." If we go to verse 40, the end of that chapter, it says, "So see and do according to the pattern which was shown to you on the mountain." In 26:30, it says, "And you shall raise up the dwelling place according to its pattern which you were shown on the mountain." And then finally in 27:8, it says, "Make it hollow with boards," referring to the altar of sacrifice. "Make it hollow with boards as it was shown to you on the mountain, so they are to make it."
Yeah.
So the thing that we're seeing and wanting to talk about here, the common thread of these verses, is follow the pattern shown to you on the mountain. Now, first, these statements are directed to Moshe to ensure that he followed the blueprint that Elohim showed him about how to make the tabernacle and all of its furnishings. But we can take this a step further to say we need to look at the pattern that Elohim gave to his people on the mountain, that is Mount Sinai, commonly known as the Torah. Taking it even a step further, we follow the pattern of Yeshua, our Messiah. If we go over to 1 John 2:6, we'll read a verse that most of us are probably pretty well familiar with. And it says in 1 John 2:6, would you like to read that one?
Sure. 2:6. "The one who says he abides in him, ought himself to walk in the same manner as he walked."
Yes, so if we're going to say that we stay in him or stay in relationship with him, because in the context of what John was talking about, he was talking about knowing Yeshua, staying in relationship with him. If we're going to do that, then we walk as he walked, or we follow his pattern. We follow the pattern exactly. So if we want our relationship with Elohim to grow and to flourish, then we follow the pattern of Yeshua and the Torah of Elohim. Yeah. But now let's take that a step further. Let's look at our human relationships. How can we cause our human relationships to grow and flourish by following this same pattern? Of course, if we follow the pattern of Yeshua and the Torah of Elohim that he gave to us, yes, that tells us how we're supposed to treat our fellow man. It tells us how we're supposed to treat him. Yeah. So we definitely want to follow Yeshua's pattern, and we want to follow the Torah. That helps the relationship we have with Yeshua and the Father to grow and to flourish. Yeah. But it also helps the relationships that we have with humans horizontally to grow and flourish. But there's some other things. There's some other patterns or directions that we need to also look at for our human relationships. We have to pay attention to cues. Yeah. Not the letter Q's, but to cues which are hints or unspoken directions that our potential spouse may give us, or even our family, our friends. There's things like body language. There's like hand and eye movement, facial expressions. There's nonverbal sounds such as sighs like and groans and and clearing the throat, like, things like that. And then there's also words like I don't like that, or that hurts my feelings, or why do you say things like that? These are indirect instructions that are meant to change our words or actions. So the thing is, are we paying attention to these cues, to these hints, these indirect instructions? And if we're paying attention, are we then also making the adjustments so that we can follow that pattern, the cues that our spouse or our parents or our children or our employers, those other hints and cues, are we following those to be able to give of ourselves voluntarily to create the space that allows for those human relationships to grow and flourish?
That's true. As we're studying the Torah portion through the lens of relationships, there's so much information in here, that people take other aspects of Scripture, and we're looking at it from the aspect of relationships. What patterns are we seeing in relationships when we are looking at the Word? What cues and body language, like you were saying, that are we able to go ahead and take from God's Word here? God was giving them a pattern of how to build the tabernacle, what to go ahead and do, what do they need to go ahead and gather together. It's the same thing in regards to us. When you're looking for a spouse, you're gathering information by getting to know them. You're using active listening skills to be able to listen to different cues of what they say, of what they like, they don't like, where their career is going, what God is speaking to them. Does it line up to what you're wanting to go ahead and do and what God has called you to go ahead and do? God has not called us to go overseas to be missionaries somewhere else. Maybe God has called somebody else, and you're listening to what they're having to say, and they're like, oh, I'm supposed to go to South Africa, or I'm supposed to go to Thailand and minister, or I'm supposed to go ahead and move to Alaska. Does that line up to what God has told you to go ahead and do? Or has that not? Using active listening skills is going to go ahead and help you to figure out, is this the right direction that you're supposed to go ahead and go to? Is that the pattern that God is wanting you to go ahead and navigate down that path of where He's wanting you to go ahead and do? When you're in a relationship with somebody, in a marriage relationship specifically, you both have to be on the same page when it goes to your calling in life. Are you both going to be ministering to people in prison? Are you both going to be, maybe one person is and one person's not, and that's okay. But it's a matter of God's not going to call one person to go out of country and the other person to stay home. Most of the time, that's not going to happen, unless it's a job change where you can't go to the Middle East because of it being bad, but it's a matter of where is God calling you to go ahead and do and be within that.
Yeah. Can you follow directions?
Yeah. Follow directions is huge.
Yeah. We're going to look now in chapter 26, and we're going to read verse 6 and 11.
Okay.
And it says in verse 6, you shall make 50 hooks of gold, and you shall join the curtains together with the hooks, and the dwelling place shall be one. And then again in 11, it says, you shall make 50 bronze hooks, and put the hooks into the loops, and join the tent together, and it shall be one. Now, most of us are familiar with the Hebrew word echad. We say it maybe daily or twice daily when we say the Shema. But echad also extends out into our relationships. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we're talking about these curtains of linen and these curtains of goat hair that are joined by some hooks, and they come together to form one unit, a unit that is joined together to function in a certain way, and it has a common purpose together.
Yeah.
So that is kind of one of the meanings of echad, to be one in unity, purpose, and function. So even though these linen curtains or these curtains of goat's hair would have been distinguishable as separate pieces, they were joined together to form the covering for the tabernacle. So this is symbolic of a marriage. It's two separate people that are joining together to become one in unity, purpose, and function. Yeah. So can we take a lesson from this and just ask ourselves, are we ready? Are we willing to not be a indistinguishable person, I guess would be the way, like you're a distinguished person and you're joining together with somebody else to
Yeah.
become one. Now, you can still be distinguished one from the other, but you are joined in such a way that now you have the same purpose, you have the same function, you're unified. So that is one thing that we can take from this symbology of these curtains being joined together.
Yeah. How are you becoming one with the person that you are either wanting to become married to, or you are married already, and how are you able to go ahead and be one? How are you able to go ahead and function as being one? And if you're not functioning as one, then you need to go back and figure out and be like, okay, where did we fall apart? Where are we not on the same page? How can we get back on the same page when it comes to raising kids and running our household? What do we need to go ahead and do to bring us back to that function as functioning as one?
Yeah, you got to go ahead and find those bronze hooks or those gold hooks.
Yeah.
The thing that is supposed to, join you together so that you can become, one in purpose, and that's going to be different for a lot of different relationships.
Yeah.
You got different things that are going to make you unified in your purpose and your function within the body of Messiah.
Yeah.
So that your marriage can do positive things and building things inside of the body of Messiah.
Yeah.
And if you haven't found that, then you need to look for those gold hooks and look for those bronze hooks.
Exactly. Yeah.
The last place we'll look at inside of this Torah portion is going to be verse 33, 26:33. Can you read that?
Yeah. 36, what was it again? I'm sorry.
26:33.
33. And you shall hang up the veil under the clasp, and shall bring in of the ark of the testimony there within the veil, and the veil shall serve for you as a partition between the holy place and the holy of holies.
So what we've got here, we've got this veil, then inside the tabernacle that set up a partition or a separation, or as we've talked about before, a boundary. It set up a boundary between the holy place and the most holy place. The holy place where you have the menorah and you have the table of showbread and you have the altar of incense. And then there's a veil that separates from the most holy place that contained the Ark of the Covenant. And basically, one thing that we see here, we look at the symbolism. You can look at what these pieces of furniture symbolize and come away with a lot of different opinions. Yeah. But I'm going to speculate, and this is just a speculation, it doesn't mean it's the end all, that it would represent the heart. Both the heart of Elohim, because it contained his words, the tablets of the covenant. So it contained his words. So further, it can teach us about our heart. Now, the ark was kept in the most holy place, which represents extremely limited access. In fact, only one person on the face of the earth could go into that most holy place, and he could only do it one time a year with a very specific ritual. So extremely limited access. This can teach us that we should limit access to our heart to only trustworthy and proven people. Let's look now at Proverbs 4. Again, this is a verse that most of us probably memorized even when we were children. Proverbs 4:23.
4:23. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the spring of life.
Watch That's over true. Your heart. So we don't want you to misunderstand us, because we're not saying that you should not allow anyone access to your heart. On the contrary, sharing your heart with another person is a beautiful experience as well as cathartic, which it provides a release. So we're not saying not to do that. What we are saying is that sharing your heart with the wrong person can be a huge mistake. What you have to do is you have to take care to share your heart with someone who will also guard your heart.
You don't want somebody who's going to misuse it. Use it against you, in regards to you open up your heart and you share what's going on in your life. You share some of the trauma possibly, or some joys that have happened, and all of a sudden the person is like, oh, okay, that's great. And they start talking about themselves. It's like, I just told you about a huge victory that happened in my life, or I just told you about a huge raise that happened, and now you're wanting to go ahead and talk about yourself? Like, what just happened here? You know, you want to go ahead and give your heart to that special someone.
Yeah.
You know, you want to go ahead and preserve that special, you know, that giving of yourself, you know, and it's a matter of that person wanting to go ahead and take special care of it. Yeah. You know, it's like a special little egg, you know, or it's like a newborn baby. You know, you don't drop a newborn baby. No. You know, you hold that thing so tight that if it wiggles just a little bit, you're like, oh my gosh, you know, that it's like you hang on to that so careful that nothing is going to go ahead and hurt, you know, that little baby.
And you want someone who is going to treat your heart with that same great care.
Yeah.
I mean, not only is King King Solomon, telling us to guard our heart, it's a matter of taking a step further and making sure that the people that we share our heart with are also going to have that same attitude and reverence about, you know, guarding our heart. And likewise, when they share their heart with us, we have to have that same care of, you know, like what they just shared with me is very special and very precious. Yes. And I need to be able to guard it and protect it and cherish it.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to be able to do that, you know, and if you are in a relationship where that might not be happening, have that conversation, have that hard conversation with your spouse, you know, with your kids, and be like, hey, we need to change some stuff. You know, I need you to take better care of how I feel, you know, and how my heart deals with this right now, you know, and it's okay to go ahead and do that. That person loves you, you know, they want to go ahead and do that. If they're in a good mental place, you know, and a right relationship, they're going to want to go ahead and take care of your heart that way.
Yeah. So this is one of our shorter videos. There were some really good things in it, though. The overall theme of this Parsha Terumah, is following instructions. But there's also several sub-themes that taught us about multiple relationship lessons. Can you give of yourself voluntarily to promote growth and development of your relationships? That's huge. Will you follow the pattern of Yeshua and the instructions of Elohim so that you can not only maintain and build a great relationship with Elohim, but also with your spouse and your fellow humans? Can you pay attention to your spouse? Can you listen to the hints and the cues and the unspoken instructions that they give? Have you thought through and discussed the goal of becoming one in purpose and in function with your potential spouse? And is your potential spouse the one you can share your heart with, who will protect and guard your heart from harm? So all these, and there's more, are lessons that Parsha Terumah provide for us. And we just encourage you to continue to dig in and find even more ways that these Torah portions can help you to have the kinds of relationships that Yah desires for you, His children, His kids. So we hope you've been enjoying these Torah portions, and just continue to listen to the ones going forward. If you haven't heard the ones before, go back and listen to them. There's all kinds of great stuff in there.
You know, we would love to connect with you as well. So you can email us at contactus@HebrewShebrew.com. We're going to put it down below as well, so you could go ahead and see the email address. Make sure you like and follow on our YouTube channels, and also on Facebook and Instagram. And again, we are studying the Torah portion through the lens of relationships. So it is a little bit different than a lot of other teachers that are out there in regards to how they study the Torah portion. But this is the way that we felt God telling us to go ahead and do this year. And so we're glad you are here along for the ride. And we hope you guys have a great day.
Shavua Tov.
Bye.
Bye.